Welcome back to the Inviting Shift podcast. I'm your host, Christina Smith, and I'm so excited to talk to you this week about our podcast episode. This week we have Claire Cleary here, and she's a life coach that specializes in helping people drink less alcohol long term without feeling deprived and sad so that they can feel really good about their lives. She works with gray drinkers, and if you haven't heard of this term, I hadn't heard of this term before either, but these gray drinkers are people, everyday people. They don't have a physical dependency on alcohol, but they know that they are drinking just a bit too much. And Claire believes that relying on willpower isn't the way. So if you've been white-knuckling it, or just the thought of it makes you want to sweat a little bit, she is going to show you that the key to long-term success is to deal with the root cause and why it's so hard to cut back. This process and tools she uses with her clients are the same she's used to stop drinking for the last 4 years. And if drinking isn't your thing, but maybe overeating or overindulging in anything, a lot of these same tools are going to help you be more mindful about how you're showing up. So let's tune into the conversation. Well, welcome back to the Inviting Shift podcast, and welcome Claire to the show. Thank you so much, Claire, for being here. This seems like such an important topic, especially, I don't know, for me, it's after the pandemic. This is the topic that we want to be talking about because it was so easy for me to go back into drinking. But tell me more about you and how you got to start doing what it is that you do.
Thanks for having me. Yes, drinking has definitely increased over the past couple of years due to the pandemic. And how I got where I am, which is helping people who are drinking more than they want, but struggling to cut back, to drink less. And these are people who wouldn't be characterized as alcoholics. They don't need a rehab facility or outpatient. They're not chemically dependent, but just either drinking more frequently. That may mean every night of the week, or it may mean on the weekends drinking a larger quantity than they want to be drinking. And that is somewhere where I found myself. I found myself drinking every night of the week. My husband and I having wine, starting when I came home, making dinner just became a habit. I would just open a bottle of wine, have a glass while I was cooking, maybe have another glass before dinner, have a glass with dinner, and then maybe afterwards. And, what started as just drinking on the weekends and then rolled into starting on Thursdays, and then went from 1 or 2 glasses a night to maybe 2 to 3, 3 to 4. And little by little, it just caught up with me where it got to the point where we were drinking every night. And when we would say, we got to cut back, it was hard. It was really hard to do that. And I know that at the time I felt so alone, and I felt like I had a problem, and, why can't I just drink like everyone else? It was so frustrating every, night to be making promises to myself. I'm not going to drink as much. I won't drink tonight. I'll wait till later in the week. And then constantly breaking those promises and just feeling frustration and guilt and shame about it. But now on the other side of it, what I know is so many other people are actually struggling with this too. So most of the people I work with don't want to totally stop drinking. I have totally stopped. I didn't envision that I would do that, but I just found that I felt good about it and didn't see a reason to go back. But most of the people who come to me still want to drink. They just want to feel more in control. They feel like I did, that it was too much and they didn't have control and weren't feeling good about themselves.
And I can understand that because I used to not drink a lot at all. And then when we were stuck in the house for 2 years, it suddenly became easier because what else were you going to do? You weren't going out. You weren't doing things with other people, right? There was like no doing. And then so it became this habit that like when I was done doing what I had to do for the day, because we both work from home, then I would have one cocktail. And it was very similar to your story. Like that one cocktail turned into 2, turned into 3. And then I was like, Like how many cocktails do you think I need in a night? And then it was almost every day for a little while, right? And that started to, I don't know if I would say scare me, but it started to have me concerned about my health, right? Because I knew that, I mean, it's just common sense that if we're drinking alcohol every day, there's no balance to our body anymore because we're constantly like putting it in that cycle.
And I think as you slowly start to increase, you may not necessarily see the negative effects as much. And during the pandemic, people were working from home, so maybe they weren't getting up as early and having,
Mhm.
to feel that they were getting to sleep in late, getting to kind of ease into their day. But for me, I'm also a personal trainer,
Mm.
and I had this struggle where I could still get up early and teach boot camp. And so on one hand, I had, a voice telling me, oh, you're fine. You're still in shape. You can do all of this. And on the other hand, I thought, I'm supposed to be kind of this inspiration for health and fitness. And I know that drinking every night is not healthy. So even though I could do that, often people say I don't really even feel hungover. I've gotten to the point where I can drink, 3 or 4 glasses a night and feel okay. But they know that that's not healthy and they don't want to be doing that. So that's very common.
Right, and I think I fell into that too because there was, like, no negative consequences for it. Because I still got up every day, I still did the things, right? And as long as I felt that way, but I do feel because 'cause I've taken, many, breaks from drinking, I do feel like we don't, at least me, I fool myself
Yes.
because I can get up and I don't have a headache and I didn't get sick or whatever, right? Like, I can say, "Oh, it's all fine." But then there's something in my heart that goes, "And, why are we drinking this much?" It's like a more of a curiosity, like, even if it's not impacting my health, why am I drinking so much? Like, and just getting really curious about that for me was the first thing, like, what am I avoiding? What else could I be doing?
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
Am I avoiding things? And it can be very easy for that other voice to come in and go, "Oh, Christina, you're fine. You get up, you are a productive person, you do all the things you're supposed to do. Like, it's okay if every night you start drinking at 7 p.m. and, waste the rest of your night." And I don't mean waste as in, like, I don't think I have to be productive, but I
Mhm.
think that I could be doing other things or being more connected to other things if I was not drinking.
Yeah.
And that's what really started getting me curious. But it is hard when there's like, we always think of alcoholics being like, they have to hit a rock bottom and then they go to the 12-step program. But I feel that that doesn't fit everybody because not everybody gets to the point where they're going to go homeless because they're drinking. There
Right.
doesn't have to, like, sometimes there aren't serious consequences because it's not out of control. It's just, uh, mm, at least for me, it was mindless. I'm going to talk for myself. It was just mindless. I would get done at 7 o'clock. I would go pour myself a cocktail. Like, that's just how it went. And I had to start asking myself at 7 o'clock when I was done, going, "Okay, Christina, do we really need this cocktail, or are we just pouring it because that's what we do?"
Well, that's what most of us aren't doing, where that point of curiosity is really the first step to be able
Mm,
to control it long term. Most of the time, we either are thinking, well, we don't really have a problem because we don't feel that bad. We have all the social aspects. Well, this is what everyone else is doing. This is what my spouse
mm,
is doing. This is what my, friends are doing. Everyone talks about this. It's not a big deal. Um, and most of us only think of either people who can control their alcohol or people who are alcoholics and need to go to AA or rehab. We don't realize that there's this gray period in the middle. That's who I work with. But yeah, we often attribute the drinking to, a certain time of day, like I did, or you're saying, like, end of the day, or connected with something. When I go to make dinner, this is what I'm doing, or certain circumstances. We're in COVID, we're on holiday, work is stressful, something happened with the family and you're upset. All these external things, and we're looking and blaming our over drinking on those things rather than looking inside, like what you're saying, like, why am I looking outside of me and thinking that I need alcohol? And what you said about the nighttime stuff, people most that I work with, and for myself also, we find that nighttime, where it used to be just totally like numb out with drinking, now I read so much more. I have clients that, someone's doing needlepoint, someone's reading also, someone's doing, work at night that she can't get done when the kids are home. So, yeah, there are these extra hours that maybe you're not necessarily looking to be more productive, but it opens up time for you to engage in other things.
Yeah, like our creativity or anything. Like it doesn't have to be working at night, although, if that's what makes sense. But for me, I know that once I start drinking, there's not much
Yes.
happening for the rest of the night. I don't read as well when I've been under the influence. So, if anything, it's just sitting in front of the TV. And I got so many hours of TV during the
Yeah.
pandemic. I think I've finished Netflix and Hulu, I'm pretty sure. And so, as I wanted to be curious and being like, what more could I be doing, especially for me as an empty nester, I don't have kids to take care of all day. Like, so it's me and my husband who both work from home. And so it's like, so what do we do? Right. And again, one excuse for me can easily be like, oh, but it's winter. It's cold outside. It's not like I'm going anywhere. Right.
Yeah.
I love the excuses because I think that we can all come up with them, right? It was a rough day. It was a good day. It's a Wednesday.
Yeah. And, what you said about starting to think about why you need a drink. Again, that's really the first step. So often people, we're talking at the beginning of the year, and a lot of people did dry January where they're just restricting themselves for a month, or people do that other months, people do it for Lent. And that when you use that approach, just restricting yourself for a certain amount of time, generally what happens is you're just counting down the days till you can drink again, and you're just depriving yourself of something you want. So the end of that time comes, and you haven't really solved any problems. People often think, well, I proved to myself that I could do it. I hear people say that a lot. But, I proved to myself I could do it, but now I'm drinking again. I'm back where I was. And the reason is you're not looking at why you were struggling in the first place. And without addressing that, without looking at why you're struggling and dealing with that, you wind up staying in that cycle where you connect drinking with fun, where you connect drinking as being the way to ease your stress and boredom and have a good
Kind of like a dieter, someone who goes on, like, I'm going to go on a 60-day cleanse or whatever, and then I'm going to get so healthy. And then when I'm done, I'm going to go right back to eating Doritos and tasty cakes or something, right?
I play the same thing. And it's really the same as people who are struggling with overeating. It's the same concept rather than just doing a cleanse or a diet. If you look at why you're having that food that you're telling yourself you don't want to be eating, because it's having a negative effect on you, why do you continue to have it? Why do you continue to drink more than you want over and over, even though you have this other side of yourself that is saying, I don't want to be doing this? Yeah.
Yeah. So the real work is doing the real work, which is asking ourselves the hard questions is what I'm hearing, is like asking ourselves, really, what might I be avoiding by picking up this cocktail every night? What could I be doing differently? Why, what is it that I really want? And is this in alignment with that? the amount of alcohol. And so for me, that's what really has me questioning it more, is like, if I say I want these things, like, and my health and my body is at the top of that list this year, then how can I also say that alcohol is important, or that I need to be drinking every night, right? Like, so I'm making these choices out of alignment, but we only notice that, like you said, when we start actually doing the questioning, not the, I'm going to do 30 days without, and I'm just going to white knuckle my way through, right? It's more of a like, wow, why is this impacting me so much from not drinking? Or, how, whatever, asking all those really deep questions about what's really important to us and why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I start with, having people look at their thoughts around drinking. And, we have often, when you're stuck, you're going to have these two kind of different sets of thoughts. You're going to have the thoughts that are all negative, which are telling you this isn't healthy for me. I'm feeling ashamed of this. It's making me do things I regret, that whole list of things. And that's making you want to stop. But you also have these thoughts about all the good things about alcohol. It's fun. It helps me relax. And that's why it's the struggle, because you're trying to focus on the negative things to keep yourself from drinking. But you have this part of your brain that's like, but wait, it's fun. I want
I have evidence.
so unless you deal with those things, you question them. People will say, it's my reward at the end of the day. So if you question that and say, well, is it really a reward to be doing something, giving yourself a, drink, drinking at night, when you're going to wake up feeling bad about yourself, when you're going to lose the night and you wanted to be doing other things? So questioning that. And, I encourage people to not make alcohol, quote unquote, like bad or evil thing. You don't want to look at it like that. You have plenty of friends and relatives that are still drinking. You don't want to be thinking of it in a negative way. And if you want to continue drinking, you don't want to be thinking it's bad or good. You just want to be looking at your thoughts about it. It's kind of a neutral thing, and you want to get to the point where it's not a big deal, right? That's the biggest freedom, where you're not, when you get to the point where you feel this so stuck and frustrated, often you're spending so much time and energy thinking about drinking, thinking about, I should or shouldn't be drinking tonight. How much am I drinking? How much are other people drinking when I'm out? Look how crowded the bar is. I need to get online to get my next drink. Where's the waiter? I need another drink. I'm drinking more than other people. I need to stop. There's like so much mind drama that's just exhausting. And the goal is to get to the point where it's just not a big deal. It's like if you were offered a food that's not, if you're offered like a piece of fruit where you could take it or leave it. You could walk in and say, maybe I'll have that and I'll enjoy it, but I could also not have it, and it's not a big deal.
Right, like, I'm not gonna notice if the waiter doesn't come around with the drinks or whatever. I'm, instead of, like, me hunting them down and being like, "Where is that waiter?" And I love how you say, like, making it neutral, because I know that there's people who, like, quit smoking, and then they get really angry at the people who smoke, and, like, and they turn that around, and it creates a lot of conflicts, especially if, you've been with friends and you all drink, right? And then all of a sudden, I'm not drinking, and that can create conflict if I'm getting really angry, or I have a judgment that what they're doing is bad. And I love that it's like, it's a personalized thing where I can look within myself and go, is this good or bad for me right now?
Right.
Rather than, what is everybody else doing? Or isn't it awful if they're drinking and I'm not? Or whatever that thing is, we can get resentful. And I have to be weary of that too, because I can get like, oh, they're having it and I'm not. And it's just whether or not it's going to fit for you. And it really reminds me of, for me, food, because I have gut issues. And so I have to be really particular about what I put in my body. So it's like, I'm not going to get mad at my husband for eating 6 donuts because I can't eat one. like, Like, that's his life. I'm glad he's enjoying it. And if he feels good about it, that's fine with me, But it's like they're neutral to me. I'm not angry at donuts. It's just they just don't align with me, like they just don't fit. And so I don't really need them. Could I have one? Sure, it's not going to kill me, but there are going to be some consequences for me. And so I'll have to face those. And so I think is that like where we're trying to get with this? Like, yeah, it's out there. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just, does it align with you right now?
Yeah, it's exactly the same way. If you think the food is a great example, people who don't eat dairy or, gluten or something, and it's like it has a negative effect on me, right? So that's what we're thinking about the alcohol. If it has a negative effect on you when you drink too much, you don't want to be doing that. Maybe you don't want to be drinking at all, or maybe you still want to have a drink and that doesn't have a negative effect on you. So you're fine with that and feel good about it. So yeah, it's looking at what works for you and really trying to not be looking at what other people are doing or what they're going to be thinking. That's another thing, people often worry about my whole social life. People are drinking. What are they going to say about me? What's my family going to say? People going to think I'm an alcoholic, or people going to think I have a problem. A lot of that comes up too. So,
and that's fair because my husband and I went to a brewery, and I don't drink beer. My husband loves breweries, so he had a beer. And when I said, "Oh, I'll just have water or whatever," the guy looked at me and goes, "Oh, what's your best rock bottom story?" And I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. I just don't want to drink right now. And it was a Sunday afternoon. It wasn't even like it was a Friday or Saturday night or anything. And I was like, boy, oh boy. Some people do have judgments that if you're not drinking, you must have a problem with it, which I thought was it is ridiculous, but it is out there, right? There are people who have judgments about it.
Yeah, that's definitely not cool. But yeah, you have to be comfortable with knowing that you're doing what's right for you. And at the beginning, a lot of people aren't ready to say it out loud. And that's fine. Again, it's, personal. If you want to go out and say you're the designated driver or you're on medicine or you don't feel well or whatever it is, because you're not comfortable just saying you don't want to drink your normal, wine or cocktail, then that's fine. Like, do what you have to do to make the process work for you. It's all about how you feel and, not worrying about other people's judgments. It's that let them do what they want to do.
Right, because that says more about them than it does really about you. Like, I didn't take that personal because I was just like, wow, I wonder what's going in that bartender's mind, to think that just because someone's not drinking, they must be like rock bottomed out, right? Like, that's the judgment that I had, was like, wow, I wonder what kind of life he's living, that just because somebody isn't drinking a beer, that suddenly they must be an alcoholic. I mean, that's ridiculous to me.
I mean, like,
There could be a million reasons, right? I mean, and that's, yeah. And I only say that because I would like people who are listening to like consider that just because you're being judged, it's not about you, right? It's about them thinking that something you're doing is different or strange or whatever.
And I've been vegan for like 20 years, a very long time. And when I started, it wasn't even as common. And I've had people always, trying to get me to eat meat early on. And it's just like, if you're not doing what the other people, it's like when you're, if anyone's worked in a corporate office around the holidays, when they send those baskets of candy and cookies and stuff, and everyone's like, eat, forcing these like, candies and things in your face, and you try and say no, then, oh, are you on a diet? Oh, come on, you can eat sweets. People are just constantly trying to force you to join in. And I think it does have a lot to do with making them not feel awkward about, oh, am I eating or drinking more than I should? Like, they don't want to.
They're going to have to question themselves, and they don't like the idea that you're making them question themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know that you talk about gray drinking, and gray drinking is this space, right, where we're not quite like, we're not going to AA or anything because we haven't like messed up our life. Like our lives are going pretty good, right? I mean, gray drinking, it's like the same old, same old. It's just that there's alcohol in mixed in. And what I love about you is like you're not saying, "Hey, I'm not judging you. Like this is not wrong by me," but it's about us questioning ourselves. So for me, whenever I have to go through this energy, like you said, the energy of thinking like, when's my next drink? Or like, I want to drink, I don't want to drink, I don't want these negative, but it's so much fun and there's no problem. Like that whole inner conflict, I hate those things. They make my stomach turn, and I get exhausted from them. And so I think from there we go one way or the other is like we get really angry and like, no, I'm not doing the damn thing, or we just cave in. And I wrote a book called Inviting Shift, and it really reminds me of fortitude or fear. Like, am I gonna go back to my default, which is just pouring that drink, or am I gonna be curious and like be like, well, what happens if I don't drink tonight or the next night or whatever, and not in this I'm not drink dry January kind of thing, but in a like really conscious choice day by day. And I'm curious to how you have them approach this.
Yeah. So I really stress not beating yourself up, not having judgment, self judgment. And this is something we're coming to this with, because if you've been struggling with drinking, then typically you have a lot of shame about it. And it's something that, as you said, it's not, messing up your life. And mostly other people don't realize. And often people's spouses don't even know that they're struggling with this because everything seems fine. It's this internal conflict. So, really trying to break that cycle of beating yourself up, really looking at everything with curiosity, like, interesting, why am I doing this? And if I have more than I planned on drinking during this process, not getting mad at yourself and shutting, because that just shuts you down, right? And that's
Mhm.
back to like, I'll never be able to do this, I'm failing. But that's the time to look at, well, why did I say I was only going to have one drink this night and I wound up drinking a bottle? Like, what happened there? Forget the judgment. Try and, just put
Like
that aside, like a
data wise, what
science
happened?
experiment. It's like, what made me do this? So really being conscious of, what were you thinking about? What were you feeling? Those are really the keys. What thoughts were you having? And sometimes we're not even realizing what those thoughts were. It's just automatic. Something happens and we automatically, when you start to look at, you know, oh, I, had a tough day at work and I was stressed and I was thinking, I just want to shut down. This drink will help me relax. And then starting again to look at those thoughts, and are they true? Are they not true? If they're true, if you really believe they're true, okay, well, they're not serving you. So what else could we think? Let's look at another thought. And you're not going to go from a drink helps me relax to having no drinks makes me relax. You have to find things like kind of steps, taking little step towards it. Like, is it possible I could do something else that would also make me relax? Like, could I make a phone call and talk to a friend? Could I work out? Does that make me relax? And really working on what helps you personally, because it's not all the same. That's why, when I work with people, it's like, well, what are your goals? Do you want to stop? Do you not? Where are you at now? People often get nervous. They say, well, I'm not ready to totally cut back. I'm not ready to. And I know that fear. So it's, I work with them at their pace and coming up with thoughts that work for them. We can always find evidence to prove what we want to prove. So if you're really dead set on believing alcohol is the only thing for you, you're going to look around and find that evidence. But there are
Mhm.
other there are other thoughts we can have to find, evidence for as well. Like you go to lunch and have a good time with your friends without drinking.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we, think about dinner time? Why is it that at 8 o'clock you have to have alcoholic drinks to have fun with your friends, but not at noon? Like, what other things are fun about this environment? Being with friends that you haven't seen in a while, being in a restaurant where there's music playing, like having good food. What are these other things that are fun? It's not only the alcohol. So just really digging into all of those things and
Yeah.
not being judgmental is the key.
And I love what you said about this not shaming, right? And I think like curiosity is always the cure for judgment, is like getting open and curious about why am I doing this and what's going on? Because I think shaming in my life anyway, shaming, all it does is make me feel worse, which then makes me go, screw it, I'll just drink. Like I'm feeling bad about myself, and I'm not going to get over this, right? So then the negative voices, whenever I shame myself, the negative voices can easily take over because I'm feeling weak. And then I'm like, oh, well, we'll just start again tomorrow or try some other day or whatever. And so I don't think that shame works, but it is something that a lot of us do naturally, because as we were growing up, when we did something quote unquote wrong, there was consequences and punishments for that. So some of us feel like we still have to be mean to ourselves in order to get ourselves to change. And I love that you brought that up, because I think it was Brene Brown who said that shame impacts the very part of us that thinks that we're capable of change. And so if we shame ourselves, we don't have the ability to move forward. And yeah, so just being kind to ourselves and going, okay, we're just going to look at the data, right? Like as if you were a doctor, or, Claire looking at looking at what's going on for you. Claire's not going to judge you. She's going to go, oh, I see. This is the data. This is what's happening. And this is what's going on for you.
Yeah, 100%. Shame is such a big issue and problem, and something that keeps people from, first of all, reaching out for help to begin with. That's huge.
Mm.
And you even find, as I work with people, little by little, they open up more, and, or even ashamed to say things at the beginning when, even though I've said, this is my story and I've been through this and I know this, and I get it. Like it's an awful feeling to feel that you've like let yourself get to this point. It was under your control and you let the control go. But yeah, that really is something that makes, when people have tried over and over again and they consider, like, I've tried, I've never been able to do this. Once that shame kicks in, that kind of gives you that voice of, see, you're not going to be able to do it. You're not. And so we
Yeah.
really have
So
to
might as
work.
well just give up now. You get to that bottle, right? Well, Claire, I love this topic because I don't think a lot of people talk. Like it's always like, at least what I've seen in my life is like it's black or white. You're either drinking or you're not. And I love this where it's like intentional drinking or mindful, alcohol, basically, of we're just being really mindful of, why am I doing this? And is this aligned with me right now? It's not to say that you can't drink, but just that you're comfortable, I guess, is where we're trying to get to, is like we're comfortable with how we're showing up with alcohol.
Yes. So
Okay,
important. Yeah.
awesome. So thank you so much for being here. I know that you have a little gift for our audience. So you want to tell them about that?
I do. So as we talked about, really looking at your thoughts is the first step to be able to control your drinking long term. So I have a week of questions where you can sign up. I'll give you the link. And then every day for a week, you'll get a few questions. I really encourage you to get a journal or notebook and just start asking yourself these questions, um, and thinking about, when you're going to have a drink, what thoughts are going on? What do you think this drink is going to be doing for me? Starting to be, as we said, more intentional about this, more mindful, starting to break that automatic habit of reaching for a drink.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's all it takes is that moment right before you're pouring that drink where you're like, okay, why am I doing this? Right. And that alone can be a little bit tricky for people if they're just used to pouring it. So, don't what I'm hearing is don't shame yourself if you forget to do your
Yeah.
journaling or do your mindfulness, but
Yeah.
just go back to it as soon as you can remember to.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I think this is a really great topic, especially so timely these days as we're now getting to go out and do more things, and there's so much out in the world. And so some of us would prefer to drink less, and I appreciate you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. And thanks, listeners, for tuning in. We will talk again next week. Hey, one more thing. When we are all more confident and full of self-love, we can act more intentionally and mindfully. What would a world like that look like? I want to know. One way that you can help me with this vision is to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you listen to it. It helps more than you know, and it's just a few clicks to help me create a more beautiful world. And as always, remember to be gentle with your humanness.